thank you to the organizers for inviting me today. Really happy to get a chance to talk about human control and perception of physical interaction and the implications that this has for human robot systems. So despite the fact that humans actually have somewhat inferior hardware to robotic systems, we have large feedback delays and we also have low actuator bandwidth, and yet we as humans excel at managing physical interaction with complex objects. So the critical question that motor neuroscientists as well as roboticists have is, how is this possible? And from the roboticist point of view, answering this question is critical for two reasons. One is it's going to tell us or inform us how to design better learning algorithms and control methods such that we can match the physical interaction performance of robots to that of humans. And number two is that in order to design human-centered robots that are compatible with humans, those robots need to be compatible with how humans execute or generate behavior. So a possible workaround for how humans get around their inferior hardware and yet still manage to excel at physical interaction is that the human motor control is encoded solely in terms of dynamic primitives. So this is proposed by Neville Hogan and Dagmar Sternad, the idea that any attractor can be considered a dynamic primitive. So you have just some examples are point attractors, trajectory attractors, limit cycle attractors. And these three types of forms of attractors are actually alone sufficient to describe how, say, humans would generate unconstrained movements or movements void of any contact. But to describe physical interaction, you need an additional primitive, which is mechanical impedance. And I should also note too that these forms of dynamic primitives are very much not unlike the DMPs or dynamic movement primitives that have been discussed earlier, worked on extensively by Stefan Schall's groups. And then the idea is that what the human central nervous system learns, what it encodes, and what it ultimately retrieves in order to generate motor behaviors are the parameters of these dynamic primitives, which then ultimately simplifies interaction control. And so in today's talk, I'm going to present some evidence of oscillatory and impedance primitives in two different applications. One is in human control during physical human-robot interaction, and also during human visual perception of motor behavior. So in unconstrained human arm movements, a one-third power law relationship between the radius of curvature of the hand path and tangential velocity of the hand is often observed. This sometimes can be confusing, but also referred to as the two-third power law relationship, depending how you formulate it. But what's important is that this is a pretty robust observation in human behavior. And so in a first set of experiments led by my colleague, Pauline Morris, who is a researcher at CNRS in France, we asked the question of whether humans could adapt to following non-biological patterns in robot movements. So in these experiments, our subjects were asked to follow a robot as it moved along an elliptical path. As you see, the robot here is a haptic master, and the elliptical path is shown here. And the robot would follow the same elliptical path, but with different velocity patterns. So in this case, our standard velocity pattern is when our power law relationship is 1/3, so it's the equivalent of the biological motion pattern. And then the other velocity patterns that the robot followed are non-biological power law relationships. Sometimes it's reverse, sometimes it's constant velocity regardless of curvature, etc. And importantly, subjects were instructed to apply 0 force onto the robot handle as it moved. And what we found was that participants, regardless of whether they performed this experiment with different handle types or different orientations of the ellipse, is that regardless, participants performed best when the robot followed this biological motion pattern. So when it obeyed the 1/3 or 2/3 power law. And then we asked the question, to what extent can humans learn to follow a non-biological motion pattern? And so subjects were given additional time, extended practice, as well as visual feedback. What we found was that participants improved, but it did not improve to the level of their performance when the robot moved with a biological motion pattern. And so what these results suggest is that humans use oscillatory primitives, presumably in joint space, because previously Stefan Schall and Dagmar Sterner have shown that this power law relationship can actually result from smooth joint oscillations to perform the task. It also shows that these results also show that while primitives can simplify the control of physical interaction, they can also create subtle limitations to human performance. And this can also be seen in a series of follow-up experiment conducted with a very similar experimental setup, except for the fact that subjects were instructed to, instead of applying 0 force to the robot handle, they're instructed to apply a constant 5 Newton force to the robot handle in the direction of robot motion. And what you see here on the right is just our force error patterns or signals plotted over the angular position of the robot in different conditions with visual feedback and not. But the most important thing you should notice is that you have these very periodic increases or peaks in force. And again, the instruction was to apply a constant 5 Newtons force on the robot. And what this suggests is that the force errors in this task depend on the motion of the human and the robot. And in fact, we can quantify this by taking the autocorrelation of each of these signals and finding the lag values where you have the peak autocorrelation value coefficients. And unsurprisingly, matching the data that the raw data you observed, we found that the max lags occurred at about 180 degrees or a multiple of that, so 360 degrees. And in fact, this was found not only in our 5 Newton instruction experiment, but also in our 0 Newton instruction experiments described earlier. So again, these force errors are motion dependent. And what's also very interesting is that these motion dependent errors persist throughout practice. So here we took a cross correlation of force errors from the very first time humans even touched the robot in this experiment to some of the later blocks. And as you can see, there's actually a statistically significant cross correlation of those force errors. So these results suggest that humans are actually, in this force control task, they're actually indirectly controlling force during motion using a combination of oscillatory primitives as well as impedance primitives. So while it's possible that you have some feed forward force term, as shown in the top left corner of this diagram, it's important that in order to generate the observation of motion dependent force errors, you have this term here, a motion term that acts through your impedance term to generate a force applied. And so, again, what these results show is that dynamic primitives are a competent framework to model human interaction control, but at the same time, they also highlight the trade-offs in task performance. And so the trade-off in this case being that pure force control, while possible, may be difficult to achieve. And so quickly, I just want to talk about that this idea of dynamic primitives not only exists in the generation of motor behavior, but also in the perception of it. So here we ran a series of experiments where we asked the simple question of, can humans estimate stiffness from motion without any contact? So for reference, here's the visual display that humans saw in our experiments. Nothing more, nothing less, 2 links moving on a screen. And this arm is controlled in the following way, but Let me just simplify it with a picture here. This control law is a superposition of an oscillatory attractor in hand space, which is captured by the first two terms. And then we also have a point attractor in joint space, which is the last term. And in 3 different experiments, we modulated the impedance, the stiffness of the joint space point attractor. And in one experiment, we modulated both of the elbow and shoulder stiffness simultaneously. In a second experiment, we modulated just the elbow stiffness. And in a third experiment, we modulated just the shoulder stiffness. And here you can see the different movement types that are generated by modulating the different stiffness terms. So each of these sets of motions were shown in 3 different experiments. And surprisingly, we found that humans actually can estimate stiffness from motion without contact. So what you see in this graph here are stiffness ratings. Subjects were asked to rate the stiffness of the arm on a scale from 1 to 7. And you can see the positive linear relationship with the simulated joint stiffness. And I want to emphasize that this is actually quite remarkable considering the limited amount of information that subjects were given. From motion alone, it's fundamentally impossible. So I should clarify, motion without contact, it's fundamentally impossible to estimate stiffness, right? In fact, any of these motions could be generated with a high stiffness controller, for example. However, humans were able to do that. And to be able to then estimate a change in this one parameter in our control law, given absolutely no other information about the arm, what that requires is that humans had to rely on some prior information. And we think that that humans were able to perform this task because of the fact that the arm was simulated using a biologically plausible architecture based on the superposition of dynamic primitives in the same way that human behavior is generated. So what these new research results allow us to do is extend this idea that the central nervous system learns and encodes and retrieves variables to generate motor behavior. We can now say that what the central nervous system learns, encodes, and retrieves to generate and perceive motor behavior are the parameters of dynamic primitives. So with that, I would just like to summarize in saying that the dynamic primitives framework serves as a competent model to describe how humans generate and perceive motor behavior. As highlighted in our results, while they simplify interaction control, they do introduce some limitations. And as the talk of my title promised, some implications for human robot systems. These findings suggest that care is required when you're going to try to estimate human intent from force measurements during human-robot physical interaction, because humans do not, as far as our results show, utilize pure force control to manage interactions. And second, that when we're generating robot behaviors during human-robot collaboration, we may need to consider what information those robot trajectories are presenting to humans. And with that, I would like to acknowledge all of my collaborators on this work and answer any questions.